Hey everybody, it's Eric from EPAutos.com, your libertarian car guy, and I'm sitting here just trying to kill a few minutes before I go to get my TIFAs uh, filled. I got a cavity, but what I wanted to talk to you about is this big snowstorm that's happened up in New England. This is the day after the big snowstorm, and I was listening to a radio program talking about how New York City is effectively on lockdown. The mayor has made it illegal for any mere ordinary or mundane, as Will Grigg calls them, to dare to be out on the streets. Only anointed official personages and official vehicles may use the roads that everybody gets taxed to pay for. Which is kind of interesting. It's of a piece with this business of locking down cities like they did in Boston after the bombing, and everybody's supposed to be treated like literally like a felon inside a federal prison, where you're locked down in your house, and your rights, which already have been implicitly shredded, are explicitly shredded. And goons can just come to your house, force you frog march out of the house, then just search your house, ostensibly because there's somebody on the loose. In the Boston bombing case, a 19-year-old kid who dropped the bomb. Shitty thing to do, but still, the entire city gets to surrender its rights because of one 19-year-old's actions. And now up in New York, because it snows, this whole thing is snowballing. And the same concept is being applied in a different context. They get 5 or 7 inches of snow, and it becomes a crime to even leave your freaking house. Again, because some people apparently can't handle driving in the snow, or the government is simply, the government, people like de Blasio up in New York, asserting their imperial prerogative as in old Soviet Russia to restrict road usage to their lordly selves only. It's kind of an ominous development, and all these things are kind of synergistic and coming together. If you've been following my own columns and following EP Autos, you'll know that I trace a lot of this back to that watershed moment when the Supreme Court said that it was permissible under the Constitution to conduct random and entirely probable cause-free stops of motorists to check for drunk drivers. Prior to that landmark ruling, the cops actually had to have specific, articulable, I think was the term, individualized probable cause. That is, individuals had to have done something to warrant suspicion before cops could proceed with an investigation, meaning pull them over and check to see whether they might have been drinking or whatever. And that was thrown in the woods literally with that Supreme Court decision, which empowered police to just set up these roadblocks and randomly stop people. And of course, they don't just check them for drunk driving. They do a cursory inspection of the vehicle, and if they see anything else that's illegal, for example, you're not wearing your seatbelt, or you don't have all of your paperwork up to date, your stickers on the windshield up to date, of course they're going to issue you a piece of paper for that, and perhaps worse. But the point that I constantly harp on, and I just wish more people would grok, is that if that became accepted, it would become routinized. It would become familiar and normal in the United States, which in my opinion is a very, very dangerous thing. And it would then kind of gradually, by a process of osmosis, shift to other areas of our life. And that's exactly what's happened with this Boston bombing thing, for example. And then you might recall last summer, I think it was, there was a case up in Colorado where a couple of guys robbed a bank, and the cops literally halted traffic and at gunpoint forced people out of their cars who had nothing to do with it, who were just driving down the road at that particular moment, threatened them essentially with murderous violence, and scared the crap out of them. Can you imagine that? You're driving down the road and some cop just stops your car and points an automatic rifle at you, forces you out of your car, and you have no choice but to comply, and there's no legal recourse for you. This sort of thing would have been unimaginable in the America that I grew up in, and that America was 1970s and 1980s America, not all that long ago. And now we have it being applied to a couple of inches of snow on the ground in New York. And of course, New York, like California, is sort of a nexus or locus of statism and authoritarianism. And it kind of then shifts and moves toward the interior parts of the country. Precedents are often set there, and then a couple of years go by, and before you know it, the rest of the country is doing pretty much the same thing. Anyhow, it's kind of a depressing thing. an unfortunate development as we slip and slide towards what in my opinion is going to prove to be probably a full-blown authoritarian police state. In effect, we already have that. The only freedoms that we still enjoy are sort of by default, simply because they haven't yet got SA stormtroopers standing at every street corner, but they're working on that. This Homeland Security, Heimatsicherheitsdienst, as you would say auf Deutsch, is one example of that. The TSA is another. They've vastly expanded the number of uniformed agents of the government, and that's happening for a specific reason. I have no doubt. I think this trend is going to continue, and it's probably going to accelerate and get progressively much worse. Most Americans seem to be very much like most Germans were in the 1920s and 1930s, and that is, on the one hand, very submissive and deferential toward authority, and on the other hand, literally worshipful of it. It's a very, very odd and disquieting thing. This talk of heroes, for example, of deifying people who were in the military and cops and so on as sort of sanctified, heroic personages who give their lives for the Vaterland and so on. Those of you who are familiar with the history of the 30s will certainly recall, as I do, those posters that you would see, or you can look at them now in history books, that Dr. Goebbels and Mussolini and so on put up, Stalin, showing agents of the state in heroic poses with high cheekbones and stern visages, and we must worship them and respect their authority and sacrifice for the people in the country, etc., etc. Anyhow, I'm going to go get my tooth filled now. My teeth already hurt just thinking about the city of New York being on lockdown because a couple of inches of snow fell, and I hope that you are too. Hope your teeth hurt too. Anyway, come on down to EP Autos, and we will catch up with you on the flip-flop.